What is going on, everyone? It's Wilson, and I want to make a video on the plays that were made on Friday, some of the hottest stocks that were rising, and I kind of want to go over what I think will happen in the following week, and seeing how some of these massive growth stocks were doing on Friday. So CVO was a stock that did fairly well, especially for the momentum and scalp traders. As you can tell, it hit its highs at 2.04, and it was at its lows at a roughly give or take 135. Now, how do I think this stock will continue to play? So if we look back, because this is just a 1 day 5 minute chart, if we look back, I always like looking back at the historic trends. As you can tell, on the 3 day, it was trading pretty flat line sideways at roughly anywhere between 117 to roughly 139. And then we saw this massive spike on Friday that went all the way up to 204 with a very strong bullish pattern. If we look a little bit further back, let's look at the 5 day. It was pretty sideways and then downwards and then sideways again. So the range wasn't too wide until this pumped up right here on Friday. So the way I like to think of it for this specific stock is trading pretty much with a resistance at give or take 136. It would depend on how the pre-market opens during before Monday happens. So that's tomorrow. But if we look closely at what exactly happened on Friday, it started off at 128-ish, and then it jumped all the way up to 204, and then it started trading back downwards. Now, I think that the strongest point right here that we have to take note of is about the 134 mark. So if this stock continues to trade sideways on Monday at roughly between 134 to 144, then it looks like it's going to be a dead stock that's going to continue just trading sideways. If it drops below 134, I think it will kind of go back into that stubborn zone that it was at before on the 3 day chart, as you can tell. I think it will just be trading either below this or just on and off sideways, which is not what we want to see. Now, if you're bullish on this stock, or you're a bag holder, or you end up holding the stock, what we want to see is some upward momentum pre-market and hopefully a quick boost upwards. If it can trade and fill this gap right here between the 138 to 155, I believe it will continue to go back up and go higher. So that's for CVO. Let's look at another one right now. Let's look at BONT, which is a stock that I was playing myself, and in my previous video I did talk about it. Now, this is a stock that's different from CVO. This was a previous runner. Now, I love playing previous runners because it means that there's always going to be momentum. As you can tell, on Wednesday, it did its little normal spike again, and it it set a new highs of 135, and then it spiked again on Friday, and it went all the way up to roughly 119. So this is a stock that might have a lot of continuation. And what I would want to see if I was bullish on this stock, if we look at the 1 day, is that it continues to break this gap right here at 106. So if it can go above 106 in the early hours of the first 2 hours or so, I believe that with the volume and momentum, it can push back upwards and probably even hit a new high. Now, if we can identify the support right here at roughly 87 cents. If it trades anywhere below 87 cents, I will want to get out because I believe it will just drop below this and continue trending downwards. So that's how I see BONT, but I do see a continuation play on Monday for this stock just because of how it was acting in the last couple of days. Let's look at another one that was less popular, but a stock that's also one of my favorites. This was, if you look back at roughly 10 days, it was upwards to 376. I think if you look a little bit further back, at the highest was 495. And then it started just slowly trading downwards on a downward trend, and now it's slowly popping back up. But there's not really too much strength on what we actually see on Friday. So there wasn't like a big boost like we saw with CVO or BONT. This is just kind of slowly trending upwards. What I want to see in this stock is that it continues to go upwards after some consolidation. So if it trades sideways a little bit with the strong volume, it can continue to push back up to probably roughly 320s, 330s. But if it goes downwards on Monday, then it looks like based on how the stock trades on the stubborn pattern, if we look at 3-day, if it will just kind of go back into the zone again at the 2.6 to 2.7 mark. So what we want to see is that because this stock is not too strong, and unless there's some serious catalyst that will boost it up, what we want to see is just a little bit of consolidation on Monday and then slowly trending upwards, just like it was doing on Friday from 273 to roughly 301. So if this thing can push slowly upwards another 20 cents, then we might potentially see a slow trend upwards towards back into the 380s range. But it will all depend on how it trades on Monday based on the volume and if it continues to trend upwards after a slight consolidation. I think the next one that I was looking at was NAVB. Now, if we look at this one, again, I always look at historic trends before I trade or get into a position. This thing was flat at the 43-cent range, and then some FDA news came out, and it only spiked up on Friday. So to me, this is a pump and dump, but again, if you're bullish, then I don't want to kind of bring your hopes down. But as you can tell, this was a straight pump and dump. So if you got in at the highs, then that's very unfortunate because towards the end of the day, it actually dropped back to 47 and you would have had 20-cent loss per share. But for this one, I think of it as a straight pump and dump just because there is no historic trend. If you look at the 3 days or even if you look further back, it's just trading flat on low volume, and then out of nowhere, some news got it going. So we do have to see how it continues on Monday. But looking at how the day ended, if it drops any lower, I think this thing is just going to go back to its normal range of the 42-cent range and just trade sideways forever. But if there's a strong continuation play, giving credit to the bulls, we could see a potential pump on Monday back up to possibly 60 cents or even higher, depending on how the news picks up or if they release another catalyst or something like that. But at the pump, at the high, we can tell that the RSI was relatively overbought. So that's probably why it dropped back down. It all depends on the volume kicking in and the pre-market. But to me right now, just looking at the stock, as soon as it went below the 51-cent line at the midday, I thought the stock was pretty much dead, and it just started trading lower, 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 slowly bleeding out to death. So it's a straight pump and dump, and I wouldn't play the stock unless there's just massive volume kicking in. But if you're bullish on the stock, then what I do want to see is some pre-market boost, at least up to 50 cents, and then potentially for an opener of back up to 68 cents or higher. But if it trades flat or there's no volume, then this thing will just slowly bleed back down to its normal range of roughly 42 cents. And then the volume will slowly start to die out. So if you're bullish, you just want to pray for those volume kicking in, and hopefully the stock would do well. So those are the top 4 plays that was made on Friday. And those are my prediction for the next week for these plays, and that's how I want to approach it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one.